better for this app, huh?
I know, right? It comes in clutch.
Yeah, I use I Am Sober. What do you
I
use?
also use I Am Sober. I'm a little over, got a couple grand saved too, so that's always nice to see.
Oh, I
You know what
know.
I mean?
You
When
see the money?
check your savings.
Yeah.
$2.99 sound about right. Yep.
Wow. Tomorrow's the big 300.
Yeah.
That's huge right there.
Yeah, I try not to think about those too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Those
I don't know
milestones
why.
can get, you know, you don't get too hung up on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not so. That's what I told Lisa. Lisa, I can say her name because she's coming in next week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
She'll be coming on. But when I first went in to see her, she said, "You better know," or she said, "What day?" And I was like, a week or whatever. Because at the time I already gone into to a detox and all that, and so by the time I got there, it was about 7 days in, and she's like, "You better remember your days because we're gonna ask you. We're always gonna ask you. You know your days." So I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
But I didn't want, because I had so many relapses
Yeah.
that it's just kind of like, what's,
Yeah.
I never thought I would make it. I'm at 293. I never thought that I would get to that.
You guys are right there on the race together, huh? You guys
Yeah,
are
where you
around
at?
the same time. 146.
Right on.
Hopefully, I'll never ever catch you, gentlemen. I'll be okay with that.
Yeah. I hope you don't
Sounds
either.
good.
Right. Never want to catch anybody.
So you want to do a quick check-in? How are you doing? Just basic, no particular topic. Unless you have something you want to get off your chest, that's fine too.
No, Larry, been in recovery, been sober for 299 days today. Things are going really well for me. What brought me to seek help was, I knew that it was overwhelming. I knew that I couldn't stop on my own. And so, obviously, it was affecting my family. It affects everybody around, and so that's when I realized I needed to do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's amazing how much we don't think we're affected. When you're in it, you're thinking, "Oh, I can drink. It's just affecting me." I'm the only one drinking, and I'm fine. I'm not doing anything stupid.
Right.
You don't think you are, anyways, and then you realize, when you, in hindsight, you're like, "Man, I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I did that." So it's, it really does affect your inner circle, the people around you. So you grew up here in Bakersfield?
No, I was a military brat.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, my father was a career Air Force man, and so we moved around a bit. I got here. The longest place I stayed was in Germany for 5 years when I was a little guy. And that was. I wish I was a little bit older, but I was 5 to 10 or something like that. No, 6 to 11, something like that.
Where were you born?
Texas.
Texas.
So we bounced around a bit. We landed. My dad retired. We landed in Bakersfield when I was 12. So I started junior high here. That was a big adjustment. In the military, you bounce around, and kids and families, you just pick up like it's like nothing because they're used to moving around.
Right.
When I got here to Bakersfield, started 7th grade most of the kids knew each other since they were little guys,
Right.
And so it was tough. It was tough for a good year and a half, a year to 2 years. About 8th grade is middle of 8th grade when I started clicking with other people. I mean, I had some friends, but not that close. Just because they had their circle. And, I understand that. I'd never been around that before, but...
Yeah. Do you have brothers and sisters?
They're older. I had a younger sister. She passed away, but she started... she got here when she was young, so it didn't affect her as much. It affected my older brother and sister because we got here when they were in high school, and it was pretty tough on them, too.
Yeah. Yeah, that Air Force, right?
Air Force, yeah.
Yeah. My wife's an Air Force brat, too.
Uh-huh.
She was born in Korea.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And lived in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a couple other places. But, yeah, same thing.
It's a good experience as a kid. I would say I myself I went in the Marine Corps after high school, but and my dad cursed me for doing that.
I bet. I was just gonna say.
He wanted you to go Air Force.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say the Air Force was probably it's probably one of the better branches for a family. If
Really?
you're going to make a career out of a military, I would say Air Force. Navy's good also, but they're out quite a bit.
I've got
Yeah.
the Navy lineage in my family.
Yeah.
Seems like everybody in the Air Force ends up in Germany.
Yeah.
It seems like that's the way that goes.
Main base, I
Yeah.
guess.
They have yeah. I was in Ramstein, which is a NATO base, and that I was a little guy. I didn't really I knew it was big, but then in hindsight, I started looking it up a little bit, and it's a huge base. I mean,
Right.
Huge base.
It's a whole community, right?
Oh yeah, huge base, and we because it was a NATO base, you had a lot of different countries,
Right.
their military there.
Mm-hmm.
We left right after we left in '72. My dad wanted to stay there. He had about 3 more years before retirement. He wanted to stay there, retire from there, obviously come back to the States. But it was right after the '72 Munich Olympics when those terrorists.
Yeah,
attacked.
Yeah.
when they took the
And so they had said they were going to attack a NATO base, and my dad said, "Nah." And we could see the base. The whole base went on lockdown right after that or during that, and it stayed that way.
yeah.
We used to be able to run out in the forest, go to
Right.
the town, but they stopped all that. So my dad said, "Nah, it's time to go back to the States."
It just wasn't safe, I'm sure.
No.
You got to take threats like that seriously.
Yeah, get back to the States, and there was a lot of social unrest here too, though.
Yeah, that's very
But,
true.
Yeah, it was a good experience up until that point. Though.
Yeah. Yeah, the Air Force, my father-in-law still will go to base
Oh yeah.
and still go on and stuff like that to their commissary or
Yep.
their, yeah.
Well, yeah, we did that for a number of years when my dad was still alive. Yeah.
Really?
Love commissary trips.
Mhm.
We used
Yeah.
to go to Edwards
Yep.
for ours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've been a couple times with them, but yeah, at what age did you were introduced to alcohol early at
Yeah.
18, but you probably were doing okay with it until
Yeah.
late in age?
As a lot of kids, I experimented when I was in high school. Nothing major though, like parties every once in a while. 18 when I went in the Marine Corps, I mean, it was all over the place. At 18 years old, you can buy alcohol on base.
Right.
And, it's kind of like they promoted it, it was this macho thing, you got to be mean, tough, and drink. Okay. So, I look back and I think that, and not to blame the military, it's just the culture, it's just the way it was. I look back and that was probably where it kind of started. I had my ups and downs. I think military kind of kicked it off a little bit. And then I started my career after I got out, started going to school. And so I had peaks and valleys, but when I really knew I started having a problem was when I got sick. I got sick, and that was about 5 years ago. I knew it was getting a little out of hand before then, but I always, in my mind, I always said, as many
can
of us
quit,
do,
yeah.
yep, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow never came.
Yeah.
Well, it did, but that it was always in my head. I'll stop tomorrow.
Right.
But that's just not the case, and until I, knew how much it was damaging my family, and myself with my health.
Yeah. Yeah, I was the same way. My health was not as bad as some, but worse than some for
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
I had my own battles with it, and forever, I just didn't want to quit. I just didn't want to, and I always thought the job was the problem, or this and that was the problem. It was always outside. It was never the alcohol. And then, no, it was definitely the alcohol.
Yeah.
And, just the abusive nature with it, the control that it had over me,
Uh-huh.
that make you do some dumb stuff, and then just, waking up and that's what you're thinking about. Your plans, everything revolves around it. You know, it's just crazy. Um, so about 5 years ago, when how sick were you? The doctor just told you were getting there fast.
I was getting there fast, so fast that I got sick one day. Called my doctor, said, "Hey, something's not right." So he said, "Come on and see me." I've been seeing this doctor for a while, and I still see him. Took some blood tests. The next day he called me, and he said, "Come on and see me. Bring your wife."
Oh,
I knew
man.
something was bad then. So,
Yeah.
so I went in, and he said, "You need to go see this doctor." So he sent me to a specialist. He says he's ready to see you now. Dang. So we went that right away, and I seen that doctor specialist, and he said they're waiting for you at the hospital.
Oh,
So went to the hospital, and I stayed there for a few days. I think it was about 3 or 4 days, and I've been going ever since. They continue to check up on me. I have appointments all the time. I had some kind of allergic reaction when they did some work on me. They did what's called banding. My esophagus was bleeding, so they go in there and do some banding. I had this allergic reaction where my esophagus just swelled up, and they had to incubate me. And the doctor says, it's very, very rare. So they sent me down to UCLA to the specialist. So that's where I go now. I go once a year. They do a checkup, and then I have a local doctor here. But it's I didn't realize it was that bad.
Is it a liver thing?
Yeah.
Like, is that what it?
Yeah.
That's what it gets to. Same for you, Sam.
yeah. I had pancreatitis. It was the pancreas. It was the pancreas. Yeah, that was. I had a real bad pain in the top of my chest. Like it felt like stomach pain,
Right.
like constipation, but it was high. It was like about here, and it was real tight, and like it would. I mean, it hurt really bad. And I fought it for a couple of days, thinking, it's nothing, it'll just go away. I just need another drink.
Yeah, right. And then we
You
get a
know,
little older. We
yeah.
think, it's something that'll just go.
Yeah, it doesn't, so I end up, same thing, going to I went to the hospital, and they said, we're going to keep you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and, so, and then they just stuck me in IVs, the thing is talking about affecting your family. When I was in there, I didn't know I was in ICU until I got out.
Mm-hmm.
You just thought you were in.
I thought I was just, regular old, and I was in the emergency room,
Yeah.
but it was, this was right at the peak 2020 COVID. And so they had left me in the emergency room. They said, look, you're going to have to stay here because we don't have any room anywhere else.
Yeah.
So I was in there, and, and I just thought I was just in the emergency room because they didn't have any more room for me. Well, turns out that they needed the ICU for me they needed me to be monitored constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, and I didn't really, I got home, and my wife was upset, and obviously, and then, but she was even more upset because I, scared her,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
scared her, scared my parents, scared her. And, that's when I realized, because when I was in there, I was like, I'm sleeping good, because they got your
the good stuff
medication.
in the IVs for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling better. I'm just, I didn't feel at all like I was ever going to like I was real bad. I never felt that until after I got home.
Now,
And then I realized it.
was that the end of the road? Was that when it all? That wasn't, right?
No.
Okay. And that was the end of the road for you, Larry? No, not a classic story amongst us in these rooms, right? Takes a whole lot
Yeah.
to knock us off of our behavior. Jeez.
Yeah. I had the doctor tell me you're gonna die. If you don't take care. And for some reason, I think out of all the doctors I've seen, they don't really say to stop drinking, or they just tell you what could happen. and none of the doctors asked me, "Are you still drinking? Are you doing this?" Other than my primary, he'll kind of hint around.
Right.
You know what could happen, Larry? I said, "Yeah, I realize that." But I don't know if it's an ethical thing for them or not, because I thought, why don't they just say,
No,
You
my
would
doctors
think
told
that
me.
would be something.
My doctors, my doctors were very adamant
yeah,
about me quitting because they said if you don't, there's gonna come a point in time where there's nothing we could do.
yeah, yeah,
You know, you're just gonna have to. You're gonna damage your liver beyond the point of
no
of,
return.
of,
Yeah.
of return. You know,
Right.
it's we're constantly like, at least for me, in my experience, I was comparing myself to other people. I don't drink as much as this guy. I didn't.
Oh,
I
yes.
wasn't.
Yes.
I didn't.
Yeah.
This guy doesn't have liver problems.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I don't know that, but because
Yeah.
because I'm not his doctor and don't know that, I'm thinking, this guy is fine, and maybe he is. But I used to compare myself in that way to other drinkers.
Yeah, very common. The first therapist that I went to see after I got out of the hospital, I knew I needed to get some help. I looked them up on our insurance and found this person that I thought would be pretty good. Well, he was good, but he wasn't really a substance abuse counselor or therapist. And one of the things he said to me was that it's not going to be like this forever. Well, he was talking about a friend of his that he had two friends. One friend had to stop drinking. The other friend drank and drank and drank. And the two guys, one guy would get upset, like, how come he can drink and I can't anymore? That's just the way it is. So in the same breath, this therapist tells me, so it's not going to be like this all the time. You'll be able to drink again sometime. He didn't know what he was talking about.
Obviously not.
No.
Yeah.
Well, just like in any other profession, there's bad doctors.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's bad therapists. There's
Yeah.
bad counselors.
Yeah.
And
maybe it was an approach he was trying with me. I doubted, but that when he said that, I thought, there was some relief.
yeah,
That's
it was
exactly
like
what we want
you
to
just
hear,
got
right?
the you just got the okay.
That's what I wanted to hear. I thought,
exactly what
okay.
we wanna hear.
'Cause I remember telling him, this was right out of the hospital. I was trying to quit because it's still in the back of my mind. I had my doctors, the visit or the stay at the hospital, and the doctor's telling me, if you don't stop, you know what's going to happen. And so I was telling this guy, this therapist, I said, I can't, I'm having trouble. Everywhere I go, you see billboards, commercials of, beer or liquor. And that's when he said, well, later on in life, you'll be okay. That's not the case.
Yeah, he was out of his field.
Yeah,
He
I
did
think-
not
yeah.
know what he.
Yeah, I don't, there was no malintent there.
Right.
He just wasn't, that just wasn't his his hot topic, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a relief to hear that.
Oh yeah.
You're going to hear.
Well,
whatever-
you took
you're
that
gonna-
and ran.
Yeah, you're going to hear what you want to hear with this disease.
Right.
And I call it a disease. For the longest time, I wouldn't face up to it as a disease. I kept saying, it's not a disease now. Granted, I've lost my father, not from alcoholism, but I'm quite sure it was related to alcohol. He had a heart attack at 52, and he drank a lot. I can almost guarantee it was related to that. I've lost two cousins younger, or at a young age,
Right.
an aunt and uncle. So it runs in my family. And I never thought, it's not a disease. It's not a disease. And the normal people, most of them don't believe it's a disease.
No, they definitely don't
No.
believe that, and it's going to be hard to convince them that it is.
Yeah.
Also,
I had a hard time convincing myself. I kept thinking, I'm just using that as an excuse. I can stop on my own. Your willpower can only take you so far.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that it's not the disease. That doesn't make it any easier knowing that it's a disease.
No.
And so it's not like as if we acknowledge that it's a disease, all of a sudden it's what we're doing is we're saying, okay, this is a disease. I need treatment.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is the prescription for this?
right.
And going into counseling, going into these rooms, that's what we're getting.
Right.
We're learning how to deal with problems, maybe that we didn't learn or that got lost and when we were in drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy. It's true. You know that you hear it all the time. Your disease wants to kill you.
Oh yeah.
It'll settle for you, drunk or high, right?
Yeah,
It wants to kill you.
it wants to kill you. But
You know, part of my recovery is I started, getting more into my spirituality. Seeking God for some help and guidance, and that's the devil. He's trying to every time. I get in my head, I could have one drink or something. That's all it is.
Oh yeah.
He's just there fighting. He wants.
he's pulling you.
Oh yeah. There's no doubt in my mind. I really truly believe that. And it took a while to figure that out, or not figure it out, but to believe it. I've heard it. My wife is very devout Catholic, and she'd been telling me that for quite a while. I'd listen and probably go through the other ear, but there's no doubt in my mind
Yeah,
now.
yeah. It's kind of hard to doubt it at some point. Once you get a clear head and you're able to look at the experience of what you've done, you can play the tape back.
Yeah.
Right.
Play the
Right.
tape back and look and see, some of the decisions that you've made, and some of the things that ended up happening to you because of alcohol. I was told that I was gonna not come back from it, but yet I still drank. I relapsed.
Yeah.
And you talk about guys like Joe. I can talk about Joe because Joe was on the podcast. He lost his mom, and he decided to drink again, and he already needed a liver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so this thing is if you look at those cases of, hey man, this guy's got every reason to not drink,
Mm-hmm.
and yet, I thought having kids was going to be good enough. That's not the case. I thought having a loving wife, having a good home was going to be the case. That wasn't. It just, until I've learned to deal with the reasons why I drink,
Yeah.
then I can start really come and be clear-headed and move forward.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? The reasons behind it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between us being able to go ahead and have a beer, 2 beers, maybe a shot, and call it a night, instead of just continuously going on and on. There's always something more deep-rooted
Yeah.
that's causing us to want to get to a place where it either numbs us or we forget about everything or whatever it is that why we do it. It's always the deeper-rooted thing.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, until you get in there, like I said before, willpower is, it's going to get you to a certain point. But that's once you get to that. In my case, and most folks that I've talked to that are alcoholics, once you get to a certain point, there's no turning back,
Yeah.
and you can't stop.
We've all had people like that in our family.
Yeah.
I especially coming from our background, being Hispanic and black, that runs
Yes.
in our blood, just like diabetes does.
Mm.
So we have family members that are like that, and you just explain that. One of the biggest things for me is that kind of put a light on in my head was my resentments, the things that I resented, people, places, and things
Yeah.
for. Did you find yourself having a lot of resentments?
Oh yes. Until I still do, but I have to battle those. Most of the time, a lot of the resentments that I have are something that I created somewhere down the line.
Yeah,
It's
most
good.
of the time we're the ones
You
that fall for
but-
it.
You acknowledge it,
but-
though. You can see it now.
Yeah, and the ones that I haven't, even when I'm digging, I'm thinking, what did I do to that person, or why is this happening? I could just truly say, well, that's just the way it is. There's nothing I can do about that.
That's you living in your square.
Yeah,
And it sounds like a man that's working some sort of a 12-step. Are you working some sort of a 12-step program?
Yeah.
Because that type of insight, I've heard it from counselors and other people around the rooms that we go to. They actually sometimes they feel bad for people that don't have to go to these rooms and go to these groups, because we get insight through these programs that most people never have to reach out and look for. Like we get life skills and life lessons that most people never even try to get.
Yep. I remember when I got started in the program, and that's exactly what I thought. I thought to myself, this treatment or meeting could help anybody. You don't have to be an alcoholic.
Right.
Because it like you said, it does help with, you could be the best person you think you are.
Right.
But you can always be better. You can always be a better person.
Definitely.
So it does benefit life skills, and it opens your eyes to the world, actually.
Yeah,
Ev-
just the
everybody-
communication. I
Yeah.
remember listening and talking about communication was a big one. Emotions, how that wheel of emotions,
Yeah.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
going from what was bringing on anger, what was bringing on fear, what was bringing on, all these different types of emotions that we have, and then, learning about them and knowing how to deal with them.
Still on my refrigerator right now.
Yeah, mine too.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
The emotion will.
Yeah.
The emotion will, just to kind of see where things derive from. Like, how do I actually feel? Because for the most part, we think about 4 or 5 different things. Like I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm anxious, but then you have to look, okay, so why am I mad? Okay, I'm mad because I'm scared and I don't understand why.
Yeah.
And then why am I anxious? Well, I'm anxious because of these expectations that I have on something, being able to break it down like that and make sense of it just kind of helps to ease, like, I'm an anxious guy. So it helps to ease my anxiety by doing that.
Yeah, I point to the wheel when my wife's yelling at me. I'm like, just kidding.
You said a key word, that expectations. In recovery, you want some feedback.
Right.
At least I do.
Yeah.
I want to know that I'm doing better,
Right.
and so I expect things, but you can't really expect it because the damage that you've done in the past.
Yes.
And I've done a lot of damage. I know that, and some is irreparable. But I still, in the back of my mind, I think, well, I want some feedback. I expect some feedback. Tell me how I'm doing. But I can't. I can't. I can only control my square.
Right.
And when that time comes, maybe somebody will. Maybe that person will forgive me, or whatever the case may be.
In due time, right? Like
Maybe
you
so,
said, yeah.
or maybe it's just something I have to work on myself. But I've come to peace with a lot of the things. I don't. I remember talking to a gentleman, and I told him what I thought I had done, and some of the things that I've done. He said, "Are you sure that's all you've done?" I said, "Yeah, pretty sure. I don't remember ever blacking out or anything like that." And
Yeah.
he says, "We don't know that, do you?" I said, "No, I don't. I don't know that. So I don't." He said, so he did say, "Well, then you really don't know the damage you've done," and he was right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how much I've hurt, my family or friends. And like you said earlier, it not only affects your inner circle, but it has a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you may have said to somebody else, a friend or something, that was damaging, and they still could think about that. You don't know that. But I think back and every once in a while something will pop in my head. I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did that. Why are they still even my friend? But back then most of my friends were drinkers anyway. They're still my friends. I just don't see them very often. I don't see them at all. I don't talk to them every once in a while, but they're still my friends. I think they're not coming around for my benefit.
Could also be for theirs, because I think that once people know that you're in recovery, they also want to guard, because I know the way I was.
Mm-hmm.
They want to guard their own.
There's safe
Not
zone.
saying that those people are alcoholics. I'm not saying that, but there is some of that too. But it what does it matter?
Yeah, right.
If you're at peace with the level of friendship you have with them now, then
Yeah.
so be it. You know, I think that's the biggest thing is the peace, man. The peace that I have today is nothing compared to what I was living in.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I mean the peace of being able to say, I'm an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
This is who I am. I'm all these other things too. But I am alcoholic. And it at first brings shame because you don't want nobody to know.
Right.
You're afraid what other people are going to think about you. But then once it's out there, it's like a weight off your shoulders. It's like,
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how other people already know. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, when I told people, you know, they were like, yeah, no. Oh, really? Yeah, guy, like you're always drinking.
like you're coming out of the
Like,
closet.
yeah, like you're always
yeah.
drinking. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not blacking out all over the place. I'm not stumbling around. I don't slur my words. And they were like, yeah, man, but you are always drinking. Like, there's never a time you don't want any water, you don't want any juice.
Yeah.
Ray, can we offer you a tea? Like, no, thank you. You know,
Yeah.
always drinking. So, was worried about the shame a lot. You know, and you still get that shame because of the stigma attached to it. But people already know. You know, we trick ourselves a lot into thinking people don't see.
Yeah,
it,
we also trick ourselves. It's a great point because we also think people care way more than what they actually do too.
in a bad way. Like we
Yeah.
think they care, like they're
Yeah,
judging us and caring about all these little insignificant things.
yeah. You know, this little thing that brain. You know, we talk about it a lot. It's that committee of stuff that's happening up there that you constantly fighting. I am at least.
Oh yeah.
You know, when you mentioned stigma, you know, and that was a hard thing to get over, get by. For me, was, you know, I didn't want people to think I'm alcoholic. It's
Right.
a weakness, you know.
Right.
I'm a macho guy. I was in the Marine Corps.
I control my alcohol.
Did
yeah.
this and that. I'm not weak. You know, and then you look at, and we've all seen in our rooms the professional people that are in there. You know, we have dentists, probation officers,
Yeah.
Lawyers.
lawyers,
Lot of
teachers,
lawyers.
Doctors.
nurses, doctors. You know, it's all walks of life. It's just like cancer,
Yeah.
the diseases, and that's where our medicine is counseling and therapy.
Yeah.
That without that, willpower is not going to do it.
I'm kind of curious. It's kind of off subject, but I'm just talking to Larry. I mean, I've listened to you in the rooms a little bit in our shares and stuff like that. But what got it going? Like, I know you were drinking in the military and stuff. When did you like get to that point where you're like, oh man, I'm drinking a lot, or I'm drinking too much?
Well, you know, when I think it started leading up to when I was getting closer towards retirement, and then when I retired, I had a lot of free time. And that's what I did all day long.
Right.
And I tried to clean it up by the time the wife got home from work, and she knew. But that's when it really peaked.
Right.
And that's when I got sick. And it was leading up to that because I've been drinking for such a long time.
Right.
I only drank. I never drank hard liquor.
Just beers.
Yep, until like a year before I retired. And then when I started drinking hard liquor, it really hit me.
Were you only drinking beers? What did you do, Larry? What was your profession?
I was in corrections.
You were in corrections. So yeah, so you were waiting until you got home, and then you were just about a 12-pack.
Yep.
Yeah.
You start drinking, you know, and I thought, it's just beer. It's not going to affect me that much. But
Right.
It was, and it was, and then I started drinking liquor, and then, you know, I decided, hey, I don't need beer anymore. This liquor will give me.
Does it way faster, way more effective.
And I didn't know, when after I got sick and I started, you know, coming around other people like my barber or this person, that person that I hadn't seen, they actually would say, Larry, your color's different. And I, you know, I had somebody tell me, you were looking like you were gray.
Oh man,
that was internal bleeding.
Right.
And I thought, well, why didn't anybody tell me this before?
It seems like something I should have known.
And I know my family didn't see it because when you see somebody
it
every
every
day,
day,
you don't really see the difference. But But and I think we've all seen it now. When you stop, your skin's gonna, your color's gonna change.
All
a
kind
little
of
bit.
good
Yeah.
healthy things start to
Yep.
happen for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it affected me a lot.
Yeah, I had that same thing happen to me. The people would say, "Oh yeah, you look a lot better now.
Yeah.
You don't look as you look gray." I was told the same
Yeah.
thing, and I was like,
Yeah. Scary. Yeah.
that was like, wow, So people know something's wrong with you. People know that you're sick.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't know of what, because
Right.
it could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be cancer, it could
Right.
be anything, and it's to their defense of why they don't say anything. It's hard to go to somebody, even if they're your loved one, because everybody, you're that elephant in the room.
Mm.
You're gonna end up blowing up on them. Because I know I was upset, a little bit when I first got in the hospital, and I was like, how come nobody stopped me? And I was just, but I look back at it and I was like, how, nobody was going to stop me. I would, even if they had said something, I would have never, I would have protected my alcoholism. I
Yeah,
would have
you wouldn't have
protected it
given
and
it up.
said, you know what, now I have to distance myself from you.
Yeah.
Because that's what I
Yes.
did with the
Yeah.
person who said I look great.
Right.
Yeah.
You
know what I mean?
yourself, yeah.
And that's what I would do, hiding drinking. I'd try to
Yeah.
stay away from my wife, my family, and, we schedule events. I'd always schedule them where I could find a bar or find
Yep.
somewhere to get something to drink. And,
Those are our traits. I
Yeah.
didn't go to my grandmother's as much. I never went to my mom's house, because like you said, if somebody attacks your disease fights back.
Yeah.
Why are your eyes always so red?
Yeah.
Why don't you get off my back? Why do you always look so tired? Well, I got a job. Like
Yeah.
it's always an excuse.
Yeah, I'm taking care of my stuff. What's the big deal?
Larry?
I work.
yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you can relate to that, especially with people know corrections is it's a tough job.
Yeah.
There's nothing. You're not sitting behind a desk
Right.
relaxing all day. So I'm sure you can make that justification in your head.
Yeah.
I deserve these 12 beers.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it started as a crutch, and then it got out of hand. It became a disease. There's still a lot of studies out there, whether it's hereditary or it's in your genes. I believe it is somewhat.
It's got to be a little piece of it. I would like to think.
I think so. And
Well, I think it is conclusive that it is in your it is in your genes, but it's in your genes in the same way that diabetes runs in my family.
Right.
Heart problems run in my family.
Right.
I may get it, I may not.
Right.
So it's I think I don't think that that's in question, but I do think it's like the story of the that they always tell in the room, and that is there's a twin boys grow up with their dad
Yeah.
being a drunk. One becomes an alcoholic, one becomes a very successful businessman, and go to the alcoholic and they say, why are you drinking? And he says, because I watch my dad.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to the kid, why don't you drink? The other one, and he says, because I watch my dad.
It's all that perception.
yeah,
But as much as it's in your genes, I like to believe that it's a environmental thing also. And that's
Yeah.
why I think a lot of Latin, what I mean, people like it's everywhere. You just grow up around
Right.
it, and that's what you do. So you do it because your
Yeah.
parents do it. That's why I did it. My parents were always drinking. It's just you see it so much. Everyone's doing it, so you just feel like that's the way you're supposed to live.
I'm I'm in the anomaly in that, and that is that my parents never drink.
Right.
My parents didn't drink. It was never around. I come from a very very, very good home life. My parents have been married 40-something years.
Right.
My dad was successful, raised a bunch of us under one roof and took care of us and all that. And so what I didn't see in my dad is that drinking But what I saw is I saw my uncles, I saw my aunts,
Right.
and I saw how I idolized that.
Right.
How I thought, wow, nothing's wrong with them. They're just having a beer. Why can't they just have a beer? What's wrong with that?
Some of them might have been normies too.
Yeah.
They might have just been
Right.
Yeah,
having a good
yeah.
time, and then they go home and they're not drinking a whole bottle.
Yeah, because if you want to drink and you could, and it doesn't have a control over you,
Hats
most
off
people
to
don't.
you. Yeah.
Most people don't. They don't have that issue. But for some of us that do, we just use. We can find anything and make it into, I want to drink, or I want to
You can get any
you
excuse.
get any
Yeah,
excuses.
Yep.
Did you do that, Larry? Did you drink? Were you mainly at the house drinking, or were you
I was an isolated drinker.
isolated drinker, not a bar guy or anything?
I mean,
that?
once in a while I'd go to bars, but
Right.
but mostly isolated. Yeah.
Sam, were you kind of the same?
Yeah, I drank at home. I drank. Yeah, I didn't go out. I always say this in the rooms, but I don't have many friends.
Right.
I have one friend that I keep in touch with.
Thank
the
you.
guy that I call.
I appreciate that. Not me. I'm sorry. Okay.
No, no. But I keep in touch with him. But for the most part, I mean, he lives his life and he's got a family, and he drinks and all that too. But
Yeah.
I don't. I have a cousin that I would hang out with, but even I isolated myself from them because I didn't want them to see how much I was drinking.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
To what degree and
So
how,
Larry was talking about the
Yeah.
hiding it, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't want them to know that because, if I would go to their house or if I would go hang out with them, I was already drinking prior to getting there. I was pre-gaming
Pre-game.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
all the time.
I think it's funny how we call it pre-gaming, but it's really just gaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even if we weren't on our way to an event or on our way somewhere, we would still be doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's pre-gaming for a normie, maybe. I used to say it because I was a very social drinker. Whether I was at my buddy's house or I was at a bar or whatever,
Right.
I would call it pre-gaming for financial reasons.
Yeah.
If I can go ahead and take a couple of these $2 shots from the liquor store and pound 2 tall cans, I won't spend $200
Yeah.
at the bar.
Right.
Right.
Never worked. I still drink the exact same amount when I get there. It was just that bad logic, You don't have great logic when you're
Yeah.
when you're drunk.
Nope.
Jeez Louise.
Makes you do it's a cunning disease. It makes you do some strange things.
Isn't it?
Anything to get a drink. Just about anything.
What are some of your bigger triggers that you deal with now versus what were some of the ones that you first had, and what did you do to stay away not stay away from, but mediate that in the beginning when you first started out, 100 or 200 days ago, 300 days ago, versus how have those evolved and changed to what you're dealing with now?
The triggers I had before were more, I don't know if they were more material, physical. They were more like going by the same place you go by to get something to drink,
Right.
or going to meeting a friend that you know you're going to drink with. So staying away from those areas. I even had to change my route around because I knew that because in the morning when I was drinking, I'd figure out, okay, how can I get a drink this time. Okay, I'm going to go here first, there first. So I had it all planned out for the day.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had to change that. Okay, I'm not going by that place today, or I'm not going to go in that direction. That was early on my recovery. Now, most of those places they don't even bother me anymore. I'll go by them. But now it's more subconscious, where the resentments,
Right.
things of that nature. I'm getting deeper into why I was drinking.
Yeah.
So those are the. I still have some resentments, and I always will, but I can deal with them a lot better now. Not all of them, not all of them, but they're getting easier to deal with because I've researched it with my therapist, and we look at things and why did I have that resentment?
Right.
And so when you start looking at it, like I said earlier, a lot of
You know how to
lot of
deal with it
times-
when it comes up.
it was something that I did.
Yeah.
And usually it was something I did because I was drinking. I made a poor choice, either poor decision, poor wording,
Poor wording.
and you say things that, and then even getting sober, you don't remember what you said. Like my wife or my kids say, "Well, you told me this." Really? Did I? Shit.
Right.
I don't remember that, but
Yeah.
but so now it's my emotions, my inner workings, figuring out how I did that, how I got to that point, and that's it's a lot easier now to look at things. Why am I so upset about this situation or that situation? I can't control it.
Right.
It's out of my hands. So why ruin my whole day worrying about it?
Yeah. Do you find yourself now, as you've gotten further, from your sobriety date, do you find yourself having those triggers farther apart from each other?
Oh yes, yeah. They're not as. I don't have to battle myself in my brain as much.
Yeah.
There was a point where I had to push things. I was still constantly thinking about it because I was trying to push it out of my brain. But so you're still thinking about it, but it's not that way anymore. I can, there are some issues that are there, and I don't. Maybe someday I'll figure out how to deal with. But for the most part, a lot of those I can deal with them now, in a calmer way, and move forward.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is it may not seem like you're dealing with some of these things that are coming up, but you are.
Yeah.
You are in being sober, you are in the 300 days that you have. Every day you are working so that way those resentments are not there anymore.
Yeah.
You're constantly working yourself. You're aware of it all now more than you ever were. You probably weren't aware of it at all when you were drinking.
Right. You just kind of stuff it to the side and let booze take care of it. That's why I drank. I didn't want to think about it.
So yeah, that's a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Just not wanting to think about the stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
I know I got the further I get away from, I don't know what it's called, I call it my 0 day or whatever.
Yeah.
The farther I get away from it, the more I feel like I need to stick to the things that got me to where I'm at today. I was telling Sam before we started that I believe it was between the 5th and the 8th or something like that. I have this board on my door that leads out to my garage, and that's where I have my daily intention and my gratitudes for the day. Sometimes I'll write some scriptures and things on there just to keep me going. There was a 3-day stretch where I didn't have a daily intention on there, and I didn't have my gratitudes on there. And I can start to feel like something was off. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to drink, because the obsession's been gone for a long time. I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to smoke. I didn't want to party. But something just wasn't right,
Yeah.
And I was curious, do you have like a daily things or anything like that you try to take care of to like maybe a
Get you
little
ready for the
program
day,
that you got, get you ready for the day?
Every morning I pray.
Nice.
And I send a prayer out to my family, to my eternal family, and they usually respond with something. They're all the kids are adults now. Mm-hmm. And then later, I was doing it first thing in the morning. I got away from it. I don't know why, but I meditate for about 30 minutes a day, and it's in the morning sometimes. I was doing it the first thing in the morning. I'd like to get back to that, but I learned that from Lauren, how to meditate, and goodness,
she's awesome.
But that is pretty much it. I've started listening to a podcast. I can't remember the gentleman's name right now, but when I start, I haven't got like you had mentioned, I haven't gotten the urge in a while.
Right.
But when it, for some reason or other, if I think I need to listen to a podcast, I'll listen to a podcast.
Right.
I don't know. I probably should get into something a little more regimented. I just haven't done that.
You're a military guy. I'm pretty sure that if you
Yeah.
you need that, you know how
That-
to do that.
That prayer is it's really it does wonders. For the prayer and meditation, it's done a lot for me.
I agree with you with that prayer. It's a lifesaver for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way. You know, I pray in the shower, but you know, it just if I don't do it, you know, it really messes up my day, and then I gotta have a daily. You say daily intentions. That same intention to have that open communication between me and God. You know, I have to have that. If I don't have that or feel like I'm getting away from it throughout my day, I try to make myself aware of it. You know, because half of this is being aware.
Oh,
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
being aware that you miss those days that you've started feeling, you know, because if you, they say if you're not working on your on recovery, then well, how's it go? You
if
don't-
you're not working on your recovery, you're working on your relapse.
Yeah, on your relapse, yeah.
Yes, sir.
And so they say that your relapse doesn't start the day that you're drinking.
Mm-mm.
It starts way before that. It
Way
starts
before
with missing the intention of the day that your normal, you know, regiment. It starts with I'll get to God tomorrow.
Right.
I'll do that tomorrow.
Right.
You know, it's not cleaning up your side of the street. You know, making sure nothing is in there and allowing a resentment to build up, because those resentments that I have, they stem from me not taking care of it right then and there.
Right. They
You
build,
know,
right?
They build, and so what happens is because I haven't addressed it or done my part in addressing it, or tried to do my part in addressing it, then it starts to and then man, you know, and then next thing I know, you know, I kind of got into that on Monday. I was, you know, I can't, I got to do this. I got to do that, you know, and it was I started feeling that relapse type mentality coming on, and it was because I didn't take care of it when I needed to,
Yeah.
and so it just lingered
Built.
and it built up.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. Very dangerous.
Yeah.
So you now that, you know, obviously life still happens, right? You get sober and we get like a month and we're like, we want everybody to celebrate.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
we get 3 months and we want and everybody's like, well, you still have all this other junk that you did to me, you know, all the stuff that we did in our drinking and addiction. How are you doing with just life in general? Are you seeing, obviously you're seeing positive outcomes in your personal life,
Right.
in your connection with God, and with your family, but you're not constantly thinking about, you know, drinking anymore. You kind of moved away from that. Are you able to keep up with your day with those things so they don't get out of whack?
I am there. There's a saying that this gentleman said one time. He said, "You can sober up a drunken horse thief." So he's not a drunken horse thief anymore, but he's still a horse thief.
That's right.
Yeah.
So just because I've stopped drinking doesn't mean I still have those bad character issues that I've had. What I've noticed, though, is a lot of them were brought upon because I was drinking.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that more positive affirmations are coming or surfacing for me.
Good.
And so with that, I'm able to see that I spend more time with my family.
I was gonna say, yeah.
We do. Let's go for a hike. I wouldn't have done that before.
Oh, no.
Definitely
Not
not.
unless there was a bar at the end.
Exactly. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. Okay, sure. And in the past, I'd make an excuse. No, I can do it.
Yeah.
And with that, you communicate, you talk about different things, and there's not chaos there
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there was before. And most of the chaos was brought on by myself.
Yeah.
And I sit back and I think about, we sat and we had dinner. This last, for the holidays, my son was home from New York, and my other son from San Diego, and my daughter's here. So, we were all here. It was fun, and we did a lot of things together. Limited because of the weather, but we were still together a lot.
Right.
And I go to bed at night. I think, if I was drinking, I couldn't have done this. There would have been fighting,
Definitely.
chaos, and most of it was created by me. Probably all of it was,
Yeah.
unbeknownst to me. Maybe purposely, but unpurposely. But I've noticed and I don't know if others have noticed it or not.
I'm
but
sure they
I
have. Yeah.
I have, and I go back to feeling, like I said earlier, I'm more at peace with myself now
Yeah.
because I know that I'm trying, and that's all I can do.
That is all you can do.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that story. You can take the bottle away from the drunken horse
Yeah.
thief, and he's still a horse thief
Yep.
because
You
those
gotta work-
character defects are things that everybody has. Normies, addicts, everybody has them. Ours are, amplified at
Right.
times because of our addictions and things like that. But that's another thing about the 12-step programs, the counseling, the therapy. They allow us to work on those things.
Yeah.
Because we've removed the bottles, we've removed the drugs, we've removed, the unsafe sexual habits and all of that type of stuff. So now it's time to get down to the nitty gritty,
Yeah.
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 And that's why I'm so thankful for these programs and even doing things like this, the recovery podcast and things like that, where we can talk about our defects and the things that we're lying underneath,
Right.
Because that's what makes the time better with your kids. That's what makes my time
Right.
better with my wife. It's the communication that makes my relationship better,
It's the availability that you have because of it.
Exactly. Like if I was this guy that I am now or that I'm becoming, if I was this mindful of all of my actions and the feelings of other people around me while I was smoking and drinking and tooting powder, I wouldn't have caused half the damage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I would have had all this knowledge, but I wasn't able to see any of this because I didn't have any clarity.
Yeah.
But the joy you get out of it now it's to me it's almost overwhelming.
Overwhelming.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you a story on the way over here. My son from San Diego calls. He's 23. He's a good kid, doing well. And I'm driving over. Hey, Dad. You could hear the radio. I said, "Where?" He said, "Where are you going?" I'm going to a friend's house. Going to do a podcast. He says, "What?" Do a podcast. Podcast on what? On recovery. And he started he started laughing with excitement.
Yeah.
Not laughing at me. He was
Yeah.
excited for me. And he said that. He goes, "Dad, I'm so happy for you." I would never, he doesn't know how much that, if he watches this podcast, he's going to know now, but how much that affected me.
Yeah.
The joy that gave me, that he was
Yeah.
excited for me.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah. It is. It's,
People are stoked for us, especially our loved ones. They've wanted this for us for a long time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. You're
they've
right.
wanted this for us for a long time.
Yep.
Yeah. Even if, that's the biggest thing is you being available. And because even if you went through the holidays, I'll speak for myself. I wasn't a bad drunk in the sense that I didn't pick fights with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, yell at my kids or do anything extra like that. But the biggest thing that even though I didn't do that, I still wasn't available to them and be in the mindset
Mm-hmm.
to enjoy that,
Right.
to even have to take away and go lay my head on the pillow and go, wow, because the peace that I have now and the joy that I have now is, like you said, it's not, you can't put it into words.
No.
It's like I have found gold, and I want everybody else, to get to it too.
Yeah, because we know what it's like on the other side.
On the other side.
And it's horrible. You think it's okay because you're the substance is taking over you. I feel good, but once you sober up, you realize
Clarity.
Yeah,
It's a more pure form of happiness, and I think that's what it is too. It's not diluted. It's not chemically put there. I mean, if it is, it's the natural, endorphins.
yeah.
But like it's real joy, real happiness. And what you were saying about your about like not getting in arguments, picking fights with your wife, and not yelling at your kids. I used to feel that same way, but I feel like myself personally, I use that as a crutch. I reasoned with myself by saying like, oh, I don't do that, so it's not that bad. But when, in all honesty, I was shut off to where she probably would have rather have an argument with me just for me to communicate. That's how bad my communication was.
Right.
She would have wanted me to have an argument just for me to communicate with her, because I was more of a shut it down type. Like not tell her like shut up or anything like that, but just I'm not gonna talk about it. I'm gonna go over here and watch TV, or I'm gonna go over here and do this, Yeah. And now, even if it's uncomfortable, because things are still extremely uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'll sit there and I'll talk about it,
Yeah.
and I'll get through it. And guess what? 90% of the time, I feel better afterwards.
Yeah. I talked to my therapist. Like, okay, so when is it going to change? That I still feel a wall there between me and the loved one. And how long were you drunk?
Oh yeah.
Long time. Okay, well, it's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
And so, like we've all learned, you can only do deal with what's in your square.
Yeah.
And the rest will either fall in place or it won't.
What was a light bulb moment for me was the square deal. Was the thing that was like, oh, okay. It started to click for me, once, because then I had heard it, and then I was trying to put it into action. And, I started feeling better. And then I realized a few days later, I was like, wow, like something is just different. Something's changed. Something clicked for me. Did you have a moment like that?
I would have to say that's probably one of the closest ones that is the square. And I'm not sure if it was because the way it was presented. We're sitting there and there are square tiles.
Yeah.
Squares,
So you can see the physical, and you keep pounding on that tile, and it just drills in your head. I can't control anybody else, how they feel about me.
Yeah.
I still, like I said before, there's still some resentments that surface, but I can control them within myself.
Right.
I could still be upset at this person, but it's not going to do me any good.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot easier for me just to, okay, it's no big thing anymore. But it is that you can only control yourself.
Yeah.
Feel like I was always a square guy, I think. You know what I mean? Super cool, super wavy, but like always the type of guy to stay in my square, probably because of my self-centeredness. You know what I mean? I wasn't really too concerned about what was going on outside of what I had going on. So I think the game changer for me was honesty.
Yeah. I was just going to say that.
That was the game changer. I'll probably talk about it a lot in group and stuff like that. But honesty was the game changer for me. And I just couldn't believe it was like this. People talk about that weight coming off your shoulder. It feels physical.
Yeah.
It feels like someone literally took weight off of your shoulders to just tell the truth all the time.
Yeah.
It's not that bad, like not having to hide things and And it's always from the people that are closest to you. You're not hiding things from people you don't care about. You're hiding things from the people that you care what they think about you.
Yeah,
You know what I
for
mean?
sure.
So it felt so great. And the people closest to me in my specific situation, it's like my wife and my mother, you know,
Yeah,
like our relationships have just blossomed so much. We can have real conversations because I'm not over here thinking about what I said last time. And the fact that I'm drunk and I'm stoned a lot, you know what I mean, back then makes it even harder to remember what I said. So yeah, that was I think that was my light bulb moment when I started telling the truth, and I was like, oh, this is
because
what
it
you're
leads
supposed to do.
to the same place. You know, it leads to that. You still got to put your head on that pillow,
Right.
and you got to think about that day, and you got to think about it's either I didn't get something done or I was dishonest,
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
You know, so it kind of all comes together in the same way.
And it's still it's still a work in progress. It's something
Sure.
that I still every once in a while catch myself being opinionated about something, and it's usually with my inner family, not with them, or it's a subject that I'm talking to them about.
Yeah.
And I had no business even throwing that out there, but I still catch myself, and I still have to work on it.
Yeah.
But it's nowhere near.
But you're aware.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And I'll think back. That wasn't none of my business. Why did I even say that? But
Yeah, we'll never be perfect, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, and that's the thing. We're not martyrs.
Yeah.
You do the best you can.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to, the program, and you don't have to be an alcoholic or a substance abuse person to gain something out of the program.
Yeah.
Not at all.
No,
Not at all.
It's just I had when I have a good friend that who had actually it was my friend. He passed away, but his younger brother, is a good friend also, and he my friend was an alcoholic. He didn't die from that. He died at a young age, but it was a different issue. He had been sober for probably about 8 years.
Oh man.
And he ended up dying from something else at 50 years old. And he was a really good friend. Well, his younger brother's a good friend of mine also. And he explained some of the trials and tribulations that his brother had gone through trying to get sober.
Yeah.
And it was a rough road.
Yeah.
And so I've shared with him some things, and he shared with me. And he's actually one that said, everything that my brother told me, anybody could benefit from the big book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just life lessons.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. That you almost like I can't there's times where I can't wait till I get home and I get to share it with my wife. One of the things that I remember one of the lessons that we learned was listening. Basically it was the exercise was go take somebody you trust,
Mm-hmm.
somebody you care about, and ask them to talk to you. Ask them to tell you about your day for 1 minute and time it 1 minute exactly, and then repeat back to them what you heard and see if it's the same thing. And
Wow.
and so
Yeah.
like tools like that, things like that I use these. I work as a manager, and so I lead people, and by default. So with that being said, I even take these same principles that or lessons that we've learned in communication, in awareness, in listening, into the workplace as well. So yeah, you're 100% right on that. It's just I've gained so much from it, and I think that's why it's so like the happiness that I have.
Yeah.
It's almost childlike.
Yeah.
I believe Vince always says it. You know what I mean? Like it has to touch your recovery, and the things we're learning, they need to touch every single aspect of your life. I can't remember the saying, but it's men are like something and women are like spaghetti. And in that case, we need to be more like women where everything touches and overlaps. Like stay in our own square when we're dealing with our issues and stuff. But when it comes to our recovery, it needs to be in every single part of our life. It needs to be on us at home, at work, at church, out at social gatherings. You know what I mean? It needs to be something that we practice at all times.
Yeah.
You got, well, yeah, you have to remember alcohol touches us at all.
Yeah.
It, You know, it did me. I thought about it all day. If I wasn't drinking then, I was trying to figure out how to get a drink.
You were definitely. I mean, like you said, you had a plan and and we all did. We all knew the store. We all knew how long it was going to take to get to that store. We knew what we were going to get because we know that would get us through the night. We knew everything. Yeah.
Yep. I would plan hotels around where the liquor stores
Oh
were.
yeah, or going out to eat. Is there a bar at that restaurant?
Somebody once told me that they wouldn't go to a restaurant that didn't serve alcohol.
yeah.
And I thought to myself, those exist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I would be, now I'm okay. But back then I would be out of my mind if we showed up somewhere to eat. And when I ordered my steak and my beer, they were like, we don't serve alcohol.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm going to go to this fast rip across the street.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
That's funny. You know, we every once in a while we'll eat at Denny's. It was my father-in-law's favorite restaurant. He passed away, but every once in a great while. And we went. This was about a year ago. Went to Denny's on Rosedale. And
Nice.
they got a bar in the back.
I was gonna say if you
They
go
do?
to Rosedale,
I didn't know
if
that.
you go to Rosedale, there's a full bar back there.
Really?
I went into that place and I was in and out of the bathroom doing God knows what, you know, in the middle of my addiction and whatnot. And I think I blacked out at some point. I dropped like $200 at the Denny's bar.
Really?
I was buying drinks for everybody at the Denny's bar because we left somewhere from drinking and we're going to eat at Denny's to sober up, and it just did not go
I didn't
that
know that.
direction.
Yeah.
I think it's the only one.
Well, that's
think
the whole
Roseville.
reason why I don't know that is because I wouldn't go there for that reason because I didn't think they served alcohol.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
We went to do the opposite. We went to not drink for a second. And, and somebody's like, yeah, there's a bar back there. I said, oh, well, I guess we're sitting back there.
That's crazy. Yeah. Wow. It does. It touches everything.
It does. You know, you thought about it, you know, every waking moment.
Yeah.
What a mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And I think that's what, like you said, you know, being on the other side of it, now you appreciate it and now you look forward to it. You know, I do. I look forward to every day.
Yeah.
You know, where before I remember Sundays I would get the shakes, you know, because I knew I was going to have to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because I wasn't taking care of the things I was supposed to be taking care of.
Yeah.
You know, or I was going to have to deal with something that I knew was coming up and it would like bother me,
Yeah.
you know, and now the thing is that it is a perspective deal to up to a certain point, because it's also implementing the tools that you need to get that perspective, you know, so it's great. I'm glad that you were able to do that and have that relationship with your son, that he's able to
Oh yeah.
to appreciate it. What's his name?
Lorenzo.
Lorenzo. Shout out Lorenzo. So, yeah.
They're all very supportive. They, you know, I'll post a coin when I get a coin.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, we have a group site or whatever that's called, like a group thread, and I'll, because they're all over the country, but it seems
That's
like
right.
it anyway.
Back east, down south.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll post a coin and they all come back. So they've all been very supportive, and I, God knows the damage I've done to them, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. There's one of the other thing that, you know, I want to point out. If somebody were to look at your life from 50,000 feet up, you've been successful, you know, in that you got kids that are out in college, daughter married, you know, a wife, you had a career and retired. You were in the Marine Corps, you know, and it's amazing to me how we get into addiction, how people get into addiction late in life.
yeah,
How hard that's got to be, because I know how hard it is for me, and for somebody that that has lived a life, who has said, because if anybody nobody has a right to drink, or I guess they do, but you have done, so to speak, your part.
Yeah, yeah. But along that way, I did damage too.
Yeah.
And what I, in meetings, I used to say it a lot. I haven't lately, but some of the younger folks, I tell them, man, don't let it get as far as I did.
Yeah.
You're gonna miss out on so much of life. And I look back, there's a lot of times that I could have, like you had said earlier, I was there, but I wasn't there,
Right.
Yeah.
and it could have been more quality, fulfilling time.
Could have been just way more present. You miss so many opportunities. The younger people too,
Yep.
because I started early, but it wasn't so much. It was partying. I partied a lot, so I drank a lot. But if I didn't go to a party that week, I wouldn't drink a beer that week.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got into I'd say my late 20s, early 30s, and that's when it became a thing. It didn't help that I got a job at a brewery and all of that, you know what I mean? But that's when it started to happen, and missed so many opportunities because of that.
Yeah.
Jobs that I would have taken, but I'm not going to take it because there's a drug test, or I'm not going to, because they random test, and I'm not going to stop smoking and doing this and that, or I don't like those hours because when am I going to get to drink,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, everybody has their own path to it. That's for sure something that, because nobody was going to be able to tell me not to drink.
Right.
I had to come to it on my own.
mm-hmm.
And that's the problem with this disease, is that, most people some people don't make it to that. Like you said, some people don't make it out of it.
Yeah.
Some people end up dying because of it, or in an institution, or in prison. That's all it leads to. And so I think about how I set up this podcast, and I always think, because they say, do a segment here, do a segment there, and then bring it all home or whatever, and one of the things I was thinking about was, a question I would pose is, what would be something that you would say to somebody, to your younger self, or to somebody that is trying to quit, that wants to quit, that maybe has an idea, but it's kind of hard for me to do that because I don't know, because I know that people aren't going to quit unless they're ready, unless they know that, unless they've met unless they want to stop digging that hole.
The friend that I mentioned to you about who passed away, he was sober for several years, and he would go out or when there was somebody in the family that was struggling, he was the one that would talk to them. And I remember him always coming back and saying, I can't help them if they don't want to help themselves.
Yeah.
I'll do the best I can. And so you think about that, you can't, you can't help somebody if they not willing to help themselves. But if I were to tell somebody, look at some of the things you're going to miss out on, that still may not make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But if you you kind of can equate it to the movie, I think it was Click.
Oh, yeah. Sandler.
Everything he missed
Oh, yeah.
with that remote control.
I don't think I've seen the whole movie, but I know the premise of it.
He missed a big part of life because he wanted to do things that he wanted to do, but he would skip a lot of parts of life.
Exactly.
And not till the very end did he realize all the things that he missed. That's what alcohol does to you.
Big moment.
You miss a lot of life. You may, like we said, you may be there, but you're not going to be there. You're not there 100%. Or you may not be there at all.
Right.
And I missed a lot of life. And I don't know many alcoholics that can sit here and say, "Nah, I didn't miss anything," because you do.
You do. That goes with the territory.
Yeah.
And it's that would have to be a material thing that I could probably work around explaining it. Watch that movie, and then we'll talk about it.
that reference makes
100%.
a
Yeah.
ton of sense.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't.
I'm thinking about it
I
now.
think-
That's deep. That's a deep reference. That's
Yeah.
that's a perfect metaphor for how it goes.
Yeah.
Because you're there,
Yeah.
but you're not really there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt you till later, till you realize,
Right.
dang, I can't believe
And it might be too late.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we should end it there because I don't know what else to say after that.
If you're
I
gonna
think
drop
you got
a
it.
if you're gonna drop a prolific bomb like that on us, Larry, I think it's time that we all just internalize that. And,
Yeah.
It's tough to it's tough to think about, but it's true. We all miss some of life. Not that much of, not like that
Right,
movie, but
right,
we
right.
miss parts of life that if we weren't indulged in something else, we may not have missed it.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't miss tonight, and I've had a blast.
Yeah, so have I.
with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
man.
Thank you, Larry, for
No,
coming.
I thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
inviting
I
me.
appreciate you.
I wanted to let you know, I try to seeing you in the room. I think at the time was like I saw, because you're Hispanic, I saw somebody I could relate to,
Mhm.
but I also saw not necessarily a father figure, but I saw somebody that resembled, what I would consider a father figure, and it was good. It was good to know that you were there because you've never said anything out of bounds. You never have said anything that because sometimes knives come out in those rooms
Yeah, they do.
when people talk, and you've always had the right intentions, at least from my point of view. And from my point of view, you have, you've done a real good job, and I'm proud of you, man. I remember I came in right after you, or started the same week, or
Yeah,
I don't
we're
know.
close, very close. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just good to have somebody else there, and taking I just wanted you to know that I thought of you that way, and it's been awesome knowing you.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the time. I appreciate what you've done. Everybody knows Sam.
Everybody knows Sam.
And that's a good thing. That everybody in the rooms know you, and people outside of the room.
Yeah,
When Sam's not around, where's Sam?
Exactly.
And because you're well liked, and we miss you when you're not there. And we all have our lives, and you're gonna do. You take your kids to karate and stuff, and that's a kick. My kids were in karate too, so I know how fun that is.
yeah,
It kind of hurts when they get.
I don't want them to get hit.
Yeah.
But you know what? It builds character. That's what I hear.
Yeah, that's what I used to tell my nieces whenever I say something stupid and I was drinking. It builds character. But thank you, man. I appreciate you.
No, thank you guys.
All right,
Thank you, Ramel.
Oh, you know it.